Other thoughts? Just initial reactions? Let me say for the sake, I'm putting this on Facebook Live. Let me say for the sake of the video, if you want to go back and watch it later, go to YouTube, search Bible Project, search Revelation, Part 1. Watch that before you watch this. Okay. Other comments? I'm curious. Thoughts? Okay, we'll repeat that comment. Can you believe they did half the book in 11 minutes? You kind of go, oh wait, this will take us 10 years. This is going to take forever. This is crazy. Yes? Okay, so let me say a couple of things at the beginning. I have taught this book over and over and over since Brenda and I were in college. Brenda and I took a Bible class, Daniel Revelation Bible class together. It was the hardest class I had. The professor, literally, we had to get in the room and sit down with our notebooks open and our pens on the paper, because when he walked in the door, he was given notes. And he did not shut up for 45 minutes, and then he'd answer questions for 15. Or however long. Maybe we were at a 90-minute class. I don't know. Was it? Okay. So he'd go for a solid hour and then answer questions for 30. But, it was brutal. The final exam was 2 questions. The first one was, tell me everything you know about the book of Revelation.
Oh my goodness.
And the second one was, tell me everything you know about Daniel. And it was like, scary. Anyway.
Who was the teacher?
Stafford North at Oklahoma Christian. And he's still teaching it, believe it or not. He needs to retire. But, oh dear, I just put that out on Facebook. Actually, he may not be still teaching it, but he is still working it. I talked to somebody recently. But I have taught and taught and taught and read and read and read and studied and studied and studied, and I'm here to tell you I have enormous amounts of regrets for things I have said about this book. In this class, over the next several weeks, I'm going to reverse a whole lot I've taught about this book. Okay? Now, having said that, even though we are a relatively homogeneous group in this room, you do have some differences in background here. People come from different perspectives. We have people who grew up hearing about Revelation from a Pentecostal perspective. We have people who grew up hearing Revelation from a Baptist perspective, from a Methodist perspective. And some of those are very, very different. What some of you in the room who grew up Church of Christ may not know is that our heritage is a millennial heritage. We are premillennialists, historically. But there's only a few small pockets of Churches of Christ left in the United States that hold a premillennial position. Most of them hold an amillennial position. And you don't even know what I'm talking about, which is fine. We may or may not talk about it at some point in time. What I'm trying to say to you is, study of this book for a long time has generated controversy. And it's always generated controversy because of the arrogance of teachers. So I'm going to try to be a humble teacher. Okay? Deal? So you may ask me some questions and I may say, I don't have a clue. No idea. Somebody says this and somebody says that. You're going to have to think about that one on your own. You're going to get frustrated with me because I'm going to tell you a lot of the rabbits you're chasing are not worth chasing. Right. And some of those rabbits are going to be really precious to you. And I'm going to tell you, it's not worth chasing. as we go through this. And that's just going to be based on my experience. All right, first thing I'm going to talk about. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Yes, Tim.
Two favorite quotes about the book of Revelation.
Everybody speak really loud so my phone will pick you up.
I have two favorite quotes about the book of Revelation. One was, I was taking Revelation under my dad, and his favorite quote about that was, the only thing that he was dogmatic about the book of Revelation was nobody could be dogmatic about the book of Revelation. And my other favorite quote about the book of Revelation is, he who comes to the book of Revelation with no predisposed ideas, let him cast the first stone.
Let him cast it. Everybody's got their own ideas they bring to the book. And that's true. That's absolutely true. My favorite quote you gave two, I'll give two. My two favorite quotes, Randy Harris at ACU says, Book of Revelation is relatively simple. There are two sides to the war. Jesus' side and the devil's. Choose Jesus' side, he wins. Okay? The other one is from Jay Holland. For those of you who never met Jay Holland, I mourn your loss. Jay Holland said, if you're struggling with understanding the book of Revelation, throw away all your commentaries and let a fourth grader read it to you. They will explain it. And by the time we get to the end of this class, you're going to understand why that is such a wise statement. Because what Tim just said is exactly right. Our preconceived ideas, what we've heard preachers say, is what gets us in trouble. And when you read this book fresh, just like you read other books, some amazing things start to happen for you. Okay? All right, so he starts out with these, you go through this in 30 seconds and you're just like, okay, interesting, maybe. That's probably the best you get. But the fact that this book is an apocalypse, is a prophecy, and is a letter is the most crucial starting point you can have. And if we had, through the centuries, started there, it would have helped greatly. So let's talk about that a second. I'm holding 4 books. I don't know why I held them that whole time, because they're really heavy. This is a songbook or a hymnal. Yes?
Yes.
You know what that is? Yes? Okay. This is Mortimer Adler's book, How to Read a Book. Got an idea what that might be about? Anybody? What might you find in this book? No, nothing about scripture. Oh, instruction. Yes, this book is going to teach you how to think when you're reading. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's going to teach you how to ask questions of the text. It's going to teach you how to organize the text in your mind. This is a classic. Used to be required reading for all college students. This would help our political system greatly if we would require every American to read this book. Okay? Just how to read would be great. This is David McCullough's novel, John Adams. Got an idea what that might be about? John Adams. It is a novel. It's a historical novel, right? So you might learn some history, but you're also going to be entertained, yes? I have never read this book. I bought it because I love the HBO series, but it's a lot easier to watch the HBO series. This is a dictionary. Anybody know what's in here?
Words.
Words! Not exactly bedtime reading unless you're going on the Jeopardy show. Yes? Do you approach these books the same way?
No.
Do you approach them with the same expectations? Okay. So the point is, you don't approach Revelation the same way you approach the Gospel of Mark. You do not approach Revelation the same way you approach the book of Psalms. You do not approach Revelation the same way you approach 1 Peter or Romans. Those are very different books doing very different things. Except Revelation is a letter. So it is trying to do some things similar to Romans through Jude. Are you with me? Those are all letters. So in the parts of Revelation that is acting like a letter, the book is trying to do something similar to what the letters are trying to do. Do you get what I'm talking about there? So what do letters try to do, especially when we're talking about the New Testament? What are letters trying to accomplish? They're giving instruction.
Encouragement.
They're giving encouragement.
Revelation.
What do you mean by that?
They are revealing things that could not otherwise be known.
Okay, so they might be telling the church some things. We're already out of time. They're telling the church some things they might not know otherwise. Not a whole lot of that, but there is some of it, certainly. There's personal connection that takes place. Watch what happens in the first chapter of Revelation. John says, John, your fellow sufferer in the persecution. Do you get what I'm saying? That's letter stuff. And so what you want to get from that is what you would want to get from a letter that you received from a friend. That's what the book is trying to do in some places. Now, it's very interesting. If you look on the chart, it says under letter 1:4 and 22:21. Do you see that up there? I know it's small.
Yes.
I blew this picture up, but that's as big as I could get it. So 1:4 says, John, to the churches of Asia Minor, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds just like the beginning of all those other letters. Paul, I, Paul, to the church in Colossae, I, Paul. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Peter, to the diaspora, scattered among it. So 1:4 is a greeting. Guess what 22:21 is? It's a closing. It's a letter closing that sounds just like all those other letters. So it's important that we understand there aren't 7 letters in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is a letter to 7 churches. So each church gets a specific address in chapters 2 and 3. But the whole thing is the letter. The conclusion of the letter doesn't happen until the last verse. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Look, all I'm telling you tonight is stuff that's right there in the book. And it's important that we understand as we go forward. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so next week we'll talk about what is prophecy. And we just spent a year doing prophets a year ago. 2 years ago. We did prophets. So we're going to think in terms of prophets. But the book is also an apocalypse. And it's the only book in the New Testament that is an apocalypse. Okay? Now, there's some Old Testament books that are apocalypses. We'll talk about that. But this is an apocalypse, and that means certain things. It means you don't read this novel and a Stephen King novel the same way. Stephen King's novels are different from David McCullough's novels. Okay, and an apocalypse is different from other kinds of writing. We'll talk about that in future weeks. Yes?
Yes.
Fun?